another installment of the Legal Geeks. Today we're going to be discussing a classic character from the turn of the 20th to the 21st centuries. This character is known by many, inspires awe, from the fantastic writing to the great acting and fantastic storytelling. And that character is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I'm morally opposed to sparkling vampires, as many of you know, but Buffy's vampires didn't sparkle. They were very well written, as were those who fought them. And, Jessica has a profound love of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And Jessica, why don't you give us an overview of the character?
Well, the idea, of course, that was the character, the story, the movie, which actually isn't that horrible, the TV show, the comic books, everything was all inspired by the great mind of Joss Whedon, my personal buddy and fanfic. And he had come up with the idea. He said, you know what? He was sick and tired of always going to movies where you see this cute little blonde thing running away from some monster and eventually being killed, eaten, slaughtered, what have you. He said, wouldn't it be awesome if one of these times that cute little blonde girl turned around and it turned out she was the scariest thing in the dark alley? And hence Buffy the Vampire Slayer was born. He did. He took, the cute little blonde cheerleader, ditzy blonde cheerleader with the ditziest, silliest name you can come up with, Buffy, and he turned her into the roughest, toughest, strongest leader, fighter that you could have, the Vampire Slayer.
And it was phenomenal. I remember when the movie came out, I worked at the movie theater and had to sell tickets for it. So again, very, very fond memories of that in Mountain View, California. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about the creative history behind Buffy?
Well, so the idea with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and this is the difference between TV and movies, of course, is Joss tried to do this in the movie, but as a writer of a movie, you don't have a lot of control. When you're the writer in TV, you have all the control, basically. So when the movie didn't turn out, when they took basically the control of the movie away from him, because he was just a screenwriter, he then decided, okay, I'm going to go make a TV show and make this what I really want it to be. And the idea was that he's like, look, high school is hell. He said, what would happen if you actually made it physically hell? Instead of just having, the guys who are metaphorical jerks, let's turn them into actual animals and demons and vampires, And so it's just this inspired idea that you have this entire city, a fictional city, of course, where hell comes to life. I think you actually have a connection to this city, right?
Yeah, I didn't grow up in a torturous land of Sunnydale. I grew up in the very wonderful town of Sunnyvale. And I went to Homestead High School, and at Homestead and in Sunnyvale, we did not have anything demonic taking place.
Good.
Nor at our arch rivals of Fremont High School was there anything weird taking place as well. But we did have our variety of claims of fame, such as Rooster T. Feathers, which used to be Andy Caps in 1972, and that's where Pong was introduced. And so when my family owned Rooster T. Feathers, we would actually have geeks on a pilgrimage coming to go see where Pong was first played. And so nothing demonic, but we did have Pong. And we also at Homestead, that's also where, guys by the name of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak went to high school and graduated and had a lot of fun in the computer class that we had at Homestead at the time, and they did okay for themselves. But yeah, it was nice seeing Sunnydale have the same zip code as my childhood home. So I appreciate them tipping the hat. But let's talk a little bit more about. Let's get legal. Let's talk about could the Sunnydale High be liable to any of the parents for being built on top of a hill mound?
Well, there is obviously the idea in the law that schools do owe a duty to protect their students. Of course, there's also a California case that says schools are not inherently dangerous places per se. Now, of course, that court had obviously never dealt with Sunnydale High, and I think would have to say, actually, it is a dangerous place per se. But the idea is that you can sue a school if there's a dangerous condition at the school and you get harmed as a result of that dangerous condition. If the school either created the dangerous condition, which in this case you might be able to argue it didn't, although the mayor did. Or if the school knew of the dangerous condition and didn't do anything to protect you from it. Obviously, in this case, after the first demon outbreak or after the first apocalypse, because they had many of those, that you know what, the school now has notice of the dangerous condition, and we are now going to hold you liable for every child who's turned into a vampire or every child who's slaughtered by a werewolf. As for the parents themselves, there are arguments that parents, if they assume the risk of sending their children to this school, which of course is a question why these parents continue to send their children to that school, they may not be able to go after the school for damages they themselves suffered. For example, their child being turned into a vampire. Although I actually think Harmony was more tolerable as a vampire than as a high school cheerleader. She's one of the characters on the show. So maybe in that case, there wouldn't have been any damages at all. But that's kind of where the liability would be.
You know, it gives new meaning to No Child Left Behind, and definitely makes charter schools more attractive if there are.
Homeschooling.
Yeah, it's something where you could have, you know, a religious icon and holy water on hand. You know, just for, you know, being able to yell, you know, the power of Christ compels you, for, you know, that added protection. To make sure nothing bad happens, that no one's getting bitten and scratched or being experimented on by the swim coach.
Oh.
Now, what was your favorite character in Buffy?
They're all great, obviously, and Xander's adorable. Oz, Seth Green was so cool as Oz, but Willow does have to be my absolute favorite. I mean, just, you know, this sweet little nerd who turns into this awesome, powerful witch, lesbian witch, is fantastic. So I love Willow. Although I'd say my most entertaining character was probably Anya, because she was the demon who was then actually, she lost her amulet and was turned into a normal human. And that's always an entertaining kind of idea to have, this idea of somebody who's kind of the outsider, trying to figure out how normal humans work and interact and everything. You see that in a lot of different stories, handled in different ways. But so Anya was always very entertaining because of that, because she just couldn't quite fit in to the regular world, and so often said very entertaining things and did entertaining things. And was afraid of rabbits.
Yeah. So was President Jimmy Carter. So, yeah, I mean, Commander-in-Chief attacked by one. So definitely fun fact. But, well, as we look ahead, I have to say Buffy was exceptionally well written. And it makes me wonder, with all the impaling that took place, if Joss Whedon hasn't carry that on as his MO, his modus operandi in killing off popular characters, because we see that both in Serenity, where Walsh gets impaled by the Reefers after Serenity crashes, and then again in the Avengers, where Agent Coulson gets impaled by Loki through the back. And it's I don't know if that's just a continued homage, or if it's just, you know, hey, it worked in Buffy, I'm doing it here. I don't know if it's conscious or not, but it's definitely it could be the beginning of his MO, if we have to watch a movie by him and wonder who's going to get impaled at some point.
That would be fun. It is a very dramatic kind of death, so I think it's very satisfying in that way.
It's violent. I mean, it's a good... I don't know if he's been questioned on that yet, of like, why are people getting impaled? But, you know, his witty writing is admirable. You know, the banter from, be it in Buffy or Avengers, you can tell a Whedon line when it comes about. Or you know, good old-fashioned Dr. Horrible sing-along blog, where again Felicia Day, you know, gets impaled. So again, there's a definite theme there with blunt objects, sharp objects killing people. So, but anyway, you might be a PMK on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so with that, any closing thoughts on Buffy?
Just that there are many reasons to love Buffy, and I love them for all of them. But one of my favorite things about Buffy, and this is the geek in me, is where they did have that great institutional memory and that continuity, you know, and that attention to detail that geeks love. One of my favorite lines that ties into this topic of Hellmouth is an episode, I think in season 3 of Buffy, where it's called Wish First, and Cordelia wishes that Buffy had never come to Sunnydale. And so what then proceeds to happen is we see what would have happened if Buffy hadn't come to Sunnydale, and basically the Hellmouth and the vampires take over. It's a horrible, dark, bleak place, Giles is still there, and he's trying to get Buffy to come to Sunnydale to help out. And he's told over the phone that apparently Buffy's too busy dealing with the Hellmouth in Cleveland. And he hangs up the phone and says, yeah, right. Like, there's really a Hellmouth in Cleveland. We then fast forward many moons to the end of the show. Sad day when Buffy finally ended. The entire city of Sunnydale is basically a crater at this point because they had to destroy the first big bad. And they're all staring down into the crater. And they say, well, you know, what are we going to do now? And Giles says, you know, I think there's a Hellmouth in Cleveland. And it's that sort of little moment that only the fans of the show for the entire, you know, however many years, 8 years I think it was, 7 years, would have, it's that sort of moment that only we would enjoy. And that's the sort of thing that just makes me get chills. And I just love the show for that sort of reason.
Exactly. Or if they work in a musical number. So definitely.
The musicals were also awesome.
Very, very good. All right. Well, once again, this time with feeling, we will secure from today's post, and I thank everyone for joining us, and Jessica, your expert knowledge on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Everyone have a wonderful day.